Your ears do not deceive you. You have just entered the Cryptid Creator Corner, brought to you by your friends at Comic Book Yeti. So without further ado, let's get on to the interview.
Hello, and welcome to Comic Book Yeti's Cryptid Creator Corner. I'm one of your hosts, Jimmy Gaspero, and we have a returning guest, and he hasn't been on the podcast just once or twice or three times. No, he has been three times before, because this is his fourth time
That's right.
on the podcast. I guess
I need my
doing-
5-timer jacket for next time.
That's right, one more time. And I don't know, Byron has something special planned, I think, for anyone that's been on 5 times. But please welcome back to the podcast for his fourth time, David, DB, Andry. David, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on again, Jimmy.
No, it's always a pleasure. We were just, before I started recording, I was just trying to sort out how many times you had been on, because we talked about Dead Blood. We talked about Morningstar with you and Tim Daniel and Marco Finnegan, and then you came back on to talk about Crush Depth, and now you're here. New Mad Cave series, you and Tim Daniel.
Yes.
Again, and Red Vector. Final order cutoff is August 4th, and the issue itself will be out August 27th. And you were kind enough to send over, an advance copy to me. I got to read it. I think I had put out there on social media that it had a very Star Wars, Last Starfighter, a bit of Enemy Mine. Just kind of some of the things that it had a little bit of, a flavor of, and all of those touch tones are things that I, absolutely love. And yeah, I thought the issue itself was fantastic. The artist you're working with, Chris, is it Evenhuis?
It's Evenhuis. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, I tried to look it up to see if I could find it. I always try to see if I find another interviewer saying their name.
Yeah.
So that I get it right.
The sacrificial lamb. How'd you say
it? Yeah. What did that guy say?
Yeah.
But the artwork in this I thought is phenomenal, because you're kind of you're straddling both a outer space kind of Starfighter world, and then a very grounded desert. The second half is a bit of kind of talking head, a lot of those types of panels. It's much more grounded than the earlier sci-fi elements. But yeah, why don't you tell listeners, how do you explain it? What is Red Vector all about?
I think you nailed it perfectly, because it is it's like Star Wars kind of crashed on Earth, and if it's me and Tim, we're always going to kind of ground it with some kind of a emotional character core. So it's still kind of as realistic personal interactions as possible with this crazy sci-fi story with this over the top melodramatic villain. And it is, that's my childhood. My childhood is Star Wars, Last Starfighter, and Enemy Mine, and all the great sci-fi and stuff that kicked off after Star Wars. So I'm loving getting to do a little sci-fi. We've done quite a bit of horror and a little bit of fantasy, so this is me and Tim's first foray into sci-fi. So I'm super excited for people to check it out and see a little different flavor maybe than what they're used to, still with that core of storytelling that I think you could recognize as me and Tim. So yeah, it's all that stuff. It's all the fun stuff. Working with Chris, it's great because there's no limits on what I can get across with facial expressions and the subtleties of all the character acting that he can do. I mean, the dude is just amazingly talented and can draw it all and make it all look beautiful and clean and perfect. And so yeah, I really wanted to work with Chris for a very, very long time, ever since I saw his work in Monstro Mechanica, and he did some work with G.I. Joe for a while, and Winona Earp. And he's, as a writer, you have that kind of laundry list of dream artists that you want to work with. And when I had the opportunity with this one, I'm like, yeah, we got to get Chris on this. He'd be perfect. So yeah, I'm super excited for people to check it out.
Yeah, and I mean the rest of the creative team, it's uh
Good luck.
yeah, Sjan Weijers is the colorist. I'm
Yes.
not familiar with their work, but that opening page, and then Buddy Beaudoin is the letterer. But
Yeah.
that opening page that Chris has drawn and colored, and I don't know if Buddy did all the narration in terms of like, the from the opening page is just like gorgeous. It's like a full splash is how it essentially opens after the credit page, and it's very evocative. It's very, what is this about? Plus, it has like a cool dog with bandana and sunglasses, and it's like,
I mean,
okay,
come on,
well,
I got to have
what's
a
that
little,
about?
well, I had my dog in resident that a lot of people were aware of, that I put my dog in there, and my current dog is more of a shepherd husky mix, so had to put my dog in this comic too. I can't show dog favoritism, so haven't put a cat yet in. I got a couple of cats, so maybe next book I'll have to slip a cat in there. But yeah, I think Sjan colors all of Chris's stuff. They're partners, and they live together, and so they're just and she's a super talented cartoonist and background artist. If you like, check out her Instagram, it's all that kind of like super colorful, almost Disney style backgrounds, and like getting her colors on this has just been like amazing. So they're such a good team because they're right there with each other, and we always get just perfect pages back from them.
Oh yeah. My apologies for not knowing that, but the two of them together, like it's just like an absolutely gorgeous book. And what I like about, I mean, as much as I love comics, I will have to say that and it's a visual medium, but I always tend to like seek out different, writers more so. Like there's a lot of art I love, but for whatever reason, I'm always been more of a words person. And I appreciate some of the amazing art, and that's one of the things that I love about your work in the writing of it, but also the folks that you and Tim choose to collaborate with, like, because all of these books look so different, whether it's Skylar Patridge for the second arc of Resonant, or Chris Sheehan, or Chris for this one, or is it Alex for
Crushed Up?
Crushed Depth. They all have such their own unique look, like and that's the great thing about working with a bunch of different artists, and you work with folks, and I think you really get the mix right in terms of the type of story you're trying to tell, and have an artist come in that really fits that look, because you think like the Chris Sheehan working on Denizen might not work for a sci-fi, story like this. I mean, it just depends.
Yeah, it's definitely going to have a different vibe, right? The storytelling's probably going to be just as good with good cartoonists and good sequential artists who can, tell the story without the words. But you definitely get a vibe from the artist, and Chris Sheehan's work is automatically, because he uses so much like charcoal-esque kind of drawings and darker shapes, and a lot of shadow. He's going to give you that creepy vibe, from the jump.
Right. Yeah, I'm not trying to knock Chris's
work.
No. I absolutely
love
Chris's work. I'm just trying to make a point that
it's different.
Your stories have all kind of bounced around with, different genres, whether, your Resonant was kind of like a take on, almost a zombie, post-apocalyptic survival story. And, Denizen was more of like a full-on, horror story. Morning Star was kind of like, just a bit of sci-fi, but a bit of like family drama, that kind of like mid-'80s thing that like Spielberg did, so well. And Crushed Depth is a claustrophobic kind of submarine body horror story.
And we put a lot of thought. I put a lot of thought. Tim puts a lot of thought into who we're going to partner with as an artist on each and every project. And it's really super important. One, we want to work with good people and people that we like as humans. And then we want to work on someone who's going to match the vibe and the feel of the story and who can do the storytelling and world building that we know we want. And so it's for each project, it's a much different list of artists that we compile to like look at and imagine how the pages are going to look and look at their work. And so yeah, it's a very, deliberate process. We haven't been willy-nilly about the artist. We've worked with every single artist we've worked with is someone we wanted to work with and we chose, and we're very excited about it. And then the earlier in the process that you know who the artist is, you can really tailor that script for them. Hopefully, you can even have a dialogue with them and what sort of things are their strengths, what do they like to do, what do they not like to do. If they're like, I hate drawing bookshelves, okay, well, we're not going to set anything in a library, then we're cool with that. And
Right.
and so there can be some adjustment of the script based on the artist. But with Chris on Red Vector, I knew just from his previous work and all the stuff he's drawn. He drew kind of robotic things in Monstro Mechanica. He drew vehicles and stuff in G.I. Joe, and then like a lot of drama and facial expressions in Winona Earp. So I knew exactly what we're getting. And the dude is consistent as a machine. You don't get a single bad panel. You don't get a single thoughtless panel. You don't get like, oh, I'm going to cheat this and this will be real quick. Like he's putting his full force and effort into every single page and panel. And so kind of knew exactly what we're getting from him. And yeah, it was kind of like, I think with this one, Marco with Morningstar was attached from the beginning before I even got there. But like for Resonant, I wasn't going to go with anybody other than Skylar for the second half. And with Red Vector, I wasn't really going to go with anybody but Evenhuis. I'm like, this has got to, if we can get this guy, this has got to be the guy, and so like, and when things, when they turn out to be a great, partner, a great coworker, a great collaborator, and a great person, it's like a super bonus on top of them being an amazing artist, so I can't say enough good things about Chris and the other Chris and all the Chris's that I've worked with before. But no, all the artists, I mean, I love them all. And it's like when people ask like, oh, what's your favorite book? When you're at a con and they're like, oh, what's your favorite one? I'm like, I can't. They're all my favorite. I love them
that's
all.
gotta be tough.
They all come out, in their own special way. The artist always elevates like things that you put down on a script. And it usually, at least luckily in my experience, the things that I imagined in my head, they came out better from the artist's brain and pen and pencil than I could ever imagine. And so I've always been like super happy, super blessed, super lucky to work with the artists that I've worked with, and always had really good luck and vibes with them, and things have gone really well. So, knock on wood, that continues hopefully for the rest. If there is more of my career after this, buy my book, please. Things are getting tight out there for creators.
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah, buy David's books, please.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
When you and Tim and Mark were on here to talk about Morningstar, you talked a little bit about, how you and Tim work. Does that change at all? Do you kind of keep the same patterns in terms of what you bring to a script and what Tim does?
Yeah.
Is it consistent throughout the different projects?
I mean, it's consistent generally because we're kind of the same people. We like doing the same thing. In every project's been slightly different. And so with Red Vector, Tim like went nuts on this thing. When we started talking about this idea, he's like, okay, and then if we get like a second series, this is what the second series is going to be. If we get a third series, this is what the third series is going to be. And I'm like, wait, I haven't even finished page 2 on the first chapter yet. So yeah, Tim had this great, backstory and this history, and that's not super my strength in like world building and stuff like that. I can do a little bit of, but I can kind of get bored with that. So I just like to kind of get in and start moving forward with the story. So I wrote a whole bunch of just a rough draft all the way through issue 5, and then he came back and plotted in all these kind of flashbacks and backstories and stuff like that, and really rounded out the whole world. And he had given me a pretty extensive outline on the series, and I did what I do and kind of went a little nuts, and then he came back and reined it back in and kind of put all the kind of complete history of the universe that we were building. So yeah, it's still fairly the same. We do a lot of bouncing back and forth. We do a lot of talking about it. I'll do a lot of drafting, and then he'll go back and do a lot of filling in and adding to what I've drafted. I'll keep the draft for pretty light. Like my rough draft will be, probably about 11 or 10 pages for an issue. And then he can go in and beef it up. And then the script will come out to 22 after we kind of go back and forth a couple of times.
Okay. So, with this story in particular, we talked about some of the things, that are maybe influences or some of the touchstones for it. But essentially, the first issue, there's immediately some type of rebels or some type of faction.
Right.
And then, the bad, who I think is the bad guys. I don't even know. I'll call them the bad guys. They're certainly drawn and colored like they're bad guys.
Yes.
So they open some type of like weapon that opens up rift, and we have, it seems like the leader of one faction and and somebody else pretty important who kind of gets stuck what appears to be on Earth together.
Yes.
And
I like that you're using a lot of appears to be and looks like, because there is some
I'm not sure.
Purposeful, yes, and that's purposeful kind of ambiguity maybe for this first issue.
Yeah.
Because there are, we do share a cultural history and like a cinematic history. There, even if you've never seen a Star Wars, you probably know what the Force is, what a lightsaber is, Darth Vader is. So you can kind of cheat a little bit,
right,
depending on people's foreknowledge, and maybe have their expectations and then subvert some of those expectations.
Yeah, well, you remember the show Sequest, DSB?
Yeah, of course.
Sequest?
Yeah, Talking Dolphin, Darwin.
Yeah, Darwin's great. Jonathan Brandis. There's an episode of Sequest that I always feel like really relied heavily on like that trope where they had Mark Hamill in Sequest, where they found like an alien ship, and Mark Hamill's like, we got to save my people, we got to do this, and then like, spoiler alert for a series over 25 years old,
30 years ago, that no one watched when it came out.
They have a 2-parter, or they have a second episode some point like much later, I think, where like you realize that like the Mark Hamill character, I think, was like they were the bad guys, and it was like, they suckered me in.
Right.
They put Luke Skywalker in a Sequest.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to trust another thing again.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm very cagey.
You're hedging your bets on this one.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I love a good melodramatic villain, so there's a lot of Zorg from Fifth Element in Peric, this kind of like, likes to make speeches and, is a megalomaniac and power crazy and stuff, but is he really a bad guy? I don't know. Who's to say? And, the rebels are rebelling and, does that make them good or bad guys? So yeah, there's some stuff going on in there. And then there's some parallels, where we placed the story, the Earthbound story on the border in like the Mexico-American border. And so of course we're going to get some parallels there in telling our Earthbound story part of Red Vector.
Okay. Oh, great. I can't wait. I just, another great first issue. So yeah, I'm excited for it. So listeners, the like we said, final order cutoff is August 4th. So you got to tell your shop that you want it to make sure you get a copy of it, and then it'll be out August 27th. I do want to talk more about Red Vector, but just if we could, I mean, we had you on to talk about Crush Depth, I think, before it came out. I think now 4 issues are out for Crush Depth.
Yep, 4th issue just came out a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, okay. So I'm all caught up on it. For anyone who hasn't read it yet, I don't, really want to spoil it. But I think Alex's work is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean,
especially in issue 4 and 5 when we get to the monster stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of, that's Alex's bread and butter. He loves horror. He's a classic horror fan, and he's drawn some Godzilla and stuff. And so when we saw his monster work, we were like, oh yeah, this is the guy for sure, because he can give us stuff that's new and unique, but also familiar and terrifying.
There's some really gross stuff. I mean, I just finished. I just read issue 4. Just took a look at it again earlier today. In preparation for this, but yeah, there's some really gross stuff in issues 3 and 4. So I can't wait to see what pops up in 5. And I really love the kind of the opening kind of, right now, and then we kind of take a step back, and we kind of have these the earlier timeline, and then like the right now timeline, and kind of converging. So.
Right, and we're gonna that converges right in issue 5, so we'll catch up to, with some some latitude based for storytelling. We're gonna catch up basically with where we started the issue. We started the issue 1 with that flashback. We'll catch up towards the end of issue 5. So it's that was a fun kind of thing to kind of play around with as a framing element, but also this little, kind of with this type of story, it lends itself to a bit of a slow build, right? You have to get to know the characters. You have to care a little bit about the characters. Then the monster has to slowly develop, and you start slamming monsters in too early, and people don't care about the characters. You slam monsters in too late, and people are bored. So that was a concern of mine, that it was going to be a little slow. So I wanted to start with this framing device, kind of showing, we're getting to get to some crazy action towards the end of this series. So just stick with us, and we'll give you a little nugget of goodness at the beginning, and then listen to a little bit of talking, and then you'll get some cool gross stuff if you stick with us.
No, and we've gotten a lot of, 4 issues in, we've gotten a lot of cool gross stuff. And I mean, especially because where for any listeners that haven't read it yet, it's set in like this kind of futuristic submarine. Like, we don't really know a ton about what has happened topside, except in issue 1 we find out like it's bad. They've been in, I think, the ship for like a decade or whatever it might be, maybe longer. And everyone everyone has like a uniform, which is tough. Like Alex really has like a tough job there, because everybody has to look distinct, and then especially when people start.
Well, and there's like almost twin brothers, right? It's
right.
Like, great.
And then, so you got to think about, like, not just in the script, like, oh, great. Like, okay, I got to make sure that I'm constantly using their names, so like people know who they are. But like in terms of the visuals of it, to make everyone be distinct, especially when some bad things start happening to them. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I mean, just Alex's work, I think, is incredible. And there were a couple of things that were in particular were pretty gross. But
I'm a queasy person. I look away during like medical dramas and stuff. And so for me, like, being in control of the gross stuff kind of made it easier. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm like, I think of it like being scared of a haunted house versus being one of the actors in the haunted house. Like, when you're in control, it's not as gross and it's not as scary. So I found myself going a little bit further than I thought I would when we got to some of the body horror and some of the kind of gross out stuff.
How descriptive were you though in terms of like in your script? Were you like, Alex, I want it to look like, uh, said character's name. I'll just pick Harper. Harper's the name
Yeah.
of a character. Like, and listeners, I'm not spoiling anything. This is a hypothetical, but if it's like, something bursts out of Harper. Were you
Right.
like very
Yeah.
descriptive, or were you just like, Alex, I need this to look, I need this to shoot out of this body part, and I need it to look like whatever, whatever.
Well, because we wanted to make sure we maintained this kind of sea creature aesthetic. So if you look at like the pupils of the eyes, we're like, we want this to look like an octopus eye that has a horizontal slit, instead of the human round, slit for the iris. And so, yeah, no, we were pretty descriptive as far
Oh,
as
okay.
like, okay, this is going to start to bulge out and get really swollen, and it's going to, the screen stuff is going to come off this way. Because we wanted to keep a lot of the sea creature themes within the monsters on the sub to match kind of the horrors that we saw kind of on the outside of the sub in the very beginning of issue 1.
Yeah.
So if you go back to issue 1, like there's human thermal vents almost, these humans have been like transformed into parts of the coral and parts of the sea floor. And so we wanted to make sure we kept that kind of consistent on the inside too. So no, I was pretty descriptive. I posted it on Blue Sky, so it's already a little spoiler, but there's a scene where one of the characters is kind of sloughing off their humanness, and they are plucking off one finger at a time, just kind of popping them off like they'd be plucking cherries from a tree or something. And so I got a real descriptive on that.
Yeah, I don't like
and that was the one that I sent Tim made that face when I sent him the script. He's like, what the hell is this? What's wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm having fun. I don't know. Yeah, it was really.
Well, still, I mean, the first issue's been out for a while, so but I just to kind of focus in on two things, because I don't know if I specifically mentioned these when we talked about it. I think I probably did mention the end of it, which you had just mentioned, like the kind of human thermal vents. It looks absolutely grotesque. I love the coloring in that scene, that kind of like underwater greenish yellow glow to it. But what, I don't know if I talked about this last time, but so apologies if I did, but like tough to accomplish, like essentially what's a jump scare in a comic.
Right.
But when they're piloting the Manta Wolf, which is like their little tiny drone sub. Yeah, and then one of the like a former crew member of the other ship they find just kind of like pops up next in panel, and then Alvarez, who I think is piloting the Manta Wolf, like kind of screams. Like, I did too. Like it's tough. It's kind of tough, like to accomplish a jump scare in a comic.
Yeah.
This was kind of as close to as I've seen.
I'm glad, because that was the intention. It is. It's like I was challenging myself, like, all right, how do I get a jump scare? Because in that type of movie or show, you would get tons of jump scares, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And things bursting out of chests or things coming around corners that are giant monsters and stuff. So you really don't get that in comics very easily. So trying to do a little like with reveals and stuff, a lot of like jump scares and creepy stuff, and a lot of hints at the monster before you see the monster, sort of a thing.
Right. Yeah. So, but I'm really enjoying Crush Depth. So I can't wait for issue 5. I'm all caught up on Crush Depth now. So I was lucky enough earlier today I went to Philly. I'm in Wilmington, but I drove up to Philly to have a beer with some comic friends of mine. It's always nice when folks that you see on the from the internet,
right,
you get to meet in person. So I had beers in Philly with Jason Piperberg, Heather Vaughn, and Grant Stoye.
Oh, nice.
And I told them that I'm interviewing David tonight, and Grant wanted to make sure that I asked you this question.
Oh God.
Where do your ideas come from?
I knew he was going to do that. I knew that I was going to do that. I'll never get Grant will never let me live that down, because that's like He's asked me on I think on the podcast with him. He's like, "What's the one question you hate?" I'm like, "That's the one." And so he asked that before we went on to air, and then as soon as we started recording, that was the first question he asked me. But I will answer that for Red Vector because we've already talked about it. I mean, I saw Empire Strikes Back in the theaters. I saw Enemy Mine in the theaters. I saw Last Starfighter. I mean, that was my Enemy Mine was my first mixed like boy girl group date. And so I'll remember that
Wait,
forever.
wait.
I'm like, I don't know why we
We
back
need
in the
to
day,
David,
back in the
we need to unpack that. Did you just say Enemy Mine, the
Enemy Mine.
Lou
Yes.
Gossett Jr.,
Yes,
Dennis Quaid?
the classic.
It's just like
Remember,
it's just the two of them. They're
remember
essentially the whole movie.
yes, very poor choice. We were very bored, but it was okay because we'd sit around and talk. And, again, remember back in whatever it was, 84, 83, 86, somewhere. I was probably about 86, 87, I would guess, if it was a boy girl date.
Enemy Mine was 1985.
85. There you go. Yeah, that
Okay.
makes about sense. Yeah. And you didn't have the internet. I didn't read the newspaper or magazine. You didn't know what movies were. You just saw a movie poster and then you saw a trailer. And the trailer made it look like a laser shoot 'em out, like action kind of alien movie. And I'm like, oh sweet, it's just another like Star Wars. Let's go see this.
Yeah.
And it was a big group of us and it was boys and girls. And yeah. It was a very poor choice. Everyone was like, "What is this movie?"
I mean, yeah. Listeners, if you haven't seen it though, I do encourage you to to find it. I'm sure it's somewhere, or
No more
if you can't
streaming.
find it streaming, go to your local library. They probably have a copy.
Yeah.
My library in Delaware has
Dust it off because no one's ever watched it. Yeah.
You probably have to rent a DVD player as well, but they probably have those. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I love,
It's fun to
Enemy
reference
Mine,
a movie that no one's ever saw. It's like, this is my big influence for this. But I did love that. I still love that trope of like two people who come from different places, different cultures, different languages, shoved together. That episode of Star Trek Next Gen,
I was just going to say that.
Taco when the walls fell, right?
Yeah,
That was
Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra is essentially Enemy Mine,
right?
With that really plays up the communication barrier.
Right. Yeah. And so, like, again, that's like my favorite episode of Star Trek. And so it's, you just don't know how many shots you're going to get in comics. Right. And so I try not to really hold anything back. I'm like, let's go. If we're going to go like body horror, let's do it big time. If we're going to go sci-fi, let's throw all of our influences in one pot and cook it up and have something come out that's originally ours, and you always are going to be, influenced by those things that touched you as a kid. I think it's good to recognize that and see where you can lean in and see when you can diverge off. And you don't want to be redundant, and you don't want to be like parroting someone else's work. But if you're saying you're not influenced by anything, that this is a wholly unique idea, I don't think that's truly that possible. We build our mental language through metaphor and stories and things we saw as kids and things that we watched and things we experienced as adults, and and looking back at different things that happened in different perspectives and different ways as you get older. But all those things influence us, and all those things are where our ideas come from, Grant. That's
where they
come from.
That's where they come from.
So that's
great answer.
Thanks for your question, listener.
The Last Starfighter is another one that I love. There's a horror convention over in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, Monster Mania, that I years ago I went to a couple of times, but I went there once, and it's usually very much geared towards folks that are in the horror industry. I think the first year I went, I met Tom Savini, who, ton of horror stuff. Dawn of the Dead, but they also do have sci-fi folks. So like I was there once, and to get autographs and whatnot. But the Lance Guest was sitting next to Catherine Mary Stewart, and I was like looking around, and I'm like, how is nobody in line for them? The Last Starfighter. Yeah, I absolutely love that movie.
Yeah.
That's right in that same area, 1984. And actually, I think unless my memory is really wonky, I'm pretty sure Louis Gossett Jr.'s character, like from Enemy Mine, kind of looks like
kind of very similar
look to.
they may
I
have
don't know the
shared
actor
makeup.
that played the other alien that fought with Lance
Oh,
Guest's character in
yeah,
the ship.
Is that no, that was Luke Gossett.
I don't know who it was in Last Starfighter.
Yeah,
all I can remember
I
is
can picture it. Yeah,
Robert Preston.
Yeah, I mean
yeah.
that was it's. I think
it's Dan O'Herlihy plays Grigg.
Oh wow.
So there we go.
Yeah, I think it's like for Gen X people, it's like Jurassic Park, right? That's something that imprinted on like the generation after me. Like that was their Empire Strikes Back, Last Starfighter, So there's these films that come out just at the right time that hit the right age group that just awaken your imagination. And yeah, all those Star Wars and Star Treks and all that stuff. So I've always been a massive sci-fi fan. So getting to do at least one sci-fi book in my career has been a huge goal. So if this is my one shot at sci-fi, I'll take it.
Nice. I mentioned I told you this question was coming because I put on, we're both in a comic creator Discord.
Yeah.
And I threw out there that I was
Discord. Discord is the main word there.
It is. But I said, did anyone have any questions for you? We had one person who jumped in. They said they'd like to know your favorite rustic recipe and please all the steps for the process.
I think he's trying to steal my recipe is why he wants all the steps. Yeah, because this for Christopher and another Christopher, and he does not know how to cook, and he won't make this recipe because it takes hours. It's my grandmother's red sauce. And we call it in the South red gravy. There's red gravy, brown gravy, and white gravy. So this was called red gravy, but it's basically a marinara sauce that takes, she would do it all day.
Yeah.
It's just real simple. You make a roux with onion and like peppers and green onions, and then put in a couple cans of tomato sauce with some spices and let it boil or let it simmer for as long as you got, and let it cook down. And then for some reason you add back water, you put water back in it because you've let it boil for so long. And you put water back in it. You put a can of like the 16-ounce can of water back in it, and just kind of stir that some more. And it's really easy. It's a nice little red sauce recipe that is a good base for any kind of spaghetti or lasagna or pizza or anything you want to do.
There's nothing better than like a pot of sauce that has been simmering.
I'm telling you, I that used to be, and I don't do it as much anymore. But when I was single and had nothing to do, my Sundays were, I'm going to make sauce all day on the Sunday and make a big batch of it and then just have pasta all week long.
Yeah.
Well, I would come in when I visit my grandmother. I would come in and she would hand me a meatball the size of a softball and just have a meatball and cover it with the gravy. And I just sit there as happy as a little clam in front of the TV eating a giant meatball.
And nothing wrong with that.
No, I had meatball sandwiches every day, and she knew exactly what I liked.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was.
I have a friend, my good friend Cass. We met in college, and he didn't. We both commuted to undergrad, and so we'd hang out on the weekends at one or the other's house where and he had a neighbor Ann who is since passed on, but like I'd go over his house for the weekend, and I wouldn't hang out at Cass's house, where his parents are. We'd hang out at Ann's house because she was probably in her 70s or into her 80s, and her family lived somewhere else. And Ann always had like a pot of sauce on the stove, and it was always something different, whether or not it was spaghetti or she'd have spaghetti and crabs. And I mean,
Yeah.
Oh,
My great grandmother till the day she died cooked every day, and she had like two giant freezers in her garage that you would open up, and it's filled with like homemade meatballs and sausage and pasta sauces and shrimp and crawfish. And this is in Mississippi. And so like she's like, "Oh, do you want some pork chops?" I'm like, "It's 8 a.m." I'm like,
yes.
"Sure, of course I want pork chops." And she's like, "You want red gravy, white gravy, or brown gravy?" I'm like, "Give me the red gravy." So yeah, and she cooked until and she had a Chihuahua that was equally parts round as long. It was just basically a giant sphere of a dog. And that dog, I think, lived to 30 or something.
Yeah.
That dog did not die until she died. And like the
8 a.m. pork chops will keep you
yeah,
going.
I mean that she had to give it to somebody because nobody else was around. And that dog ate well. So yeah.
Oh, that's too funny. Yeah, I do like that Discord though, and I do like the channel where we get to post food because like I feel like when you know, it's just fun to be like, look, I had this, and the it's usually never mean spirited, like it's always there's some good natured
Yeah,
ribbing at
ribbing.
times. But I do really enjoy the camaraderie of that. But also the
I,
one we're in is like unbelievably helpful because there are some
right.
folks on it who are really throwing out some fantastic advice who
Yeah.
have whether or not they've worked with publishers, like you or like kickstarted or crowdfunded comics. Like it's as like a resource, it's like absolutely amazing.
It's invaluable as a resource. And it's like it's something that I didn't have when I was trying to quote unquote break in, that I would have learned so much from having a group like this.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the number one recommendation usually, if you're trying to get into comics is find people at your level and create a little community. And this is like one of the best communities I've seen of people,
Yeah.
relatively at the same level trying to do the same stuff. And
Right.
I'm helping people out with pitches and other people are helping people out with scripts. And, we're helping out, like get the Kickstarter looking good and advice on, what you should price things at and all the stuff that you just don't, it's like you have a million questions that you have to try to either guess and figure out yourself or have somebody that's done it before. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It is great. I mean, and it's just shout out to, I mean, Travis Travis started it, right? Like,
yeah, it's
put that one
yeah.
together.
Yeah, and every
Um,
month Travis will let in like I think 20 new people.
yeah,
So if you're an indie comic creator, hunt down Travis Gibb on Facebook or wherever. He's pretty active on Facebook.
yeah. Orange
And
Cone Productions, Travis
yeah,
Gibb. Travis
when it
is
when it opens
fantastic,
up, yeah, when it opens up, he'll let in
right?
some vetted people, and we've kicked people out if they're not appropriate. And so it's a
But yeah,
really nice positive community. Yeah, for sure.
I find it really helpful, and like I'm not on it as much as I would like to be sometimes. With there's everything everyone's busy, but whenever I
Yeah.
do check it out and see what like the different channels, what folks are talking about, and I always post like the episodes for for Comic Book Yeti for the podcast and whatnot, and it really is like pretty great, and even like stuff that like y- newer creators or maybe folks that are like me who are kind of to the side of stuff like with the podcast but dipping my toe into creating things like there's just unbelievable resources and
Yeah.
like even things like folks talking about you know what if somebody wants to make your thing into a movie? Like that somebody always
Right.
asks like a question like that, and some folks are really like open and honest about
Yeah.
like, oh, here's what this is like. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, because there still is when just because you love something or read a ton of comics, you don't always know when you want to make things how the industry works, and even folks that are successfully kickstarted something or had like a comic published with one publisher doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to know what different publishers are doing or what next
Right.
steps might be if you really want to try and make being creative a career. So I do love that that we have that
Yeah.
resource. I think it's
Yeah,
great.
it's great. Yeah, I don't feel like I miss old Twitter as much
No, I don't.
because that kind of feels a little bit like how Twitter used to be, back in the day. And so having the Discord is like a little bit of a more closed, private Twitter
Yeah.
with us. I mean, I'm not gonna put all my business up there, but I definitely am more open on that Discord than I would be like on Twitter or Facebook.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so I'm able to say some stuff on there and maybe pull back the curtain a little bit on my experiences and how I've gotten to get books published and stuff when a lot of people are struggling to do that. So anything that I can do to help out the fellow creators is I
Right.
think is good. Yeah.
And now we know it all just involves delivering a pot of red sauce to certain editors.
100%.
That's all
100%.
it takes, huh?
Meatballs in the mail.
Well, David, once again, for your fourth episode on the podcast, this has been great.
Yes.
I'm loving Crush Depth. If
Thank you.
anyone has not heard me talk about Morningstar, hasn't listened to the episode with David and Tim and Marco, it's out in trade now. I'm a huge fan of Morningstar. If you haven't read Resonant, I mean, I
What's
encourage
wrong with
you.
you?
Yeah, I encourage you to go read both volumes of Resonant, and Denizen's great as well. But Red Vector, if you're a fan of Star Wars, Last Starfighter, Enemy Mine, David's other writing, Chris's
Tim's other
artwork,
writing. Yeah.
yeah,
Chris's
Tim's other
artwork.
writing. I mean, this is like right in terms of like my sci-fi wheelhouse. I really loved issue 1. Final order cutoff is August 4th. Let your shop know that you want it so that they order it, and it'll be there in your bin August
Yeah.
27th when issue
We
1
are
comes out. And also Mad Cave's doing a lot of stuff if you read digitally, where you can get it through, Mad Cave. They're doing different bundles where I think you can get the digital issues and then the trade. So check
Yeah, they
that
have
out
this
too.
crazy bundle where you get all the digital issues, and I believe you even get them a week before they come out in stores. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what their plan is. And you could buy a bundle that's all the digital issues, so you can read everything, and then you get the trade at the end,
Yeah.
which is amazing. I think that's a great way for people to support the comics themselves, because we need to support monthly comics, so those stay around, and then we need to support trades, so the the publisher can make some money and the creative team can make some money at the end. So I think it's a really cool way they're doing it, because I think space and money is always an issue when we come to monthly comics. I got 10 short boxes cooking over here, so I got to start paring some stuff down for get room.
Oh,
um
yeah, if I bring one more short box into the house, it's me or that short box, according
right.
to Sarah,
So
according to my
So
wife.
having that nice digital, digital option, and then a physical
Great.
option at the end,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yep,
But
I
yeah,
agree.
check it out however you check out comics, and we're done with the 5th issue. Everything's done and in the can. So again, that's another cool thing with Mad Cave, is that you're not going to get issue 1, 2, and 3, and then we're waiting 6 months for number 4. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
At least not on any of the books that we've done. We've been finished with the whole series before the first issue came out. So we'll be uh, done with creating the trade. The trade is being created right now. So the trade will be done and ready to go to print on schedule before the first issue comes out. So
Nice.
yeah. And if you're in the Bay Area, maybe come to Cape and Cowl Con the Sunday before Red Vector comes out. You might have a little Red Vector surprise for you at that show. So trying to get it's still in the works, so I can't say anything definite yet. But we're trying to get a special variant for the Cape and Cowl Con. That's the Sunday before Red Vector comes out. I think the 27th, the 26th, something around there of August. Whatever that Sunday is before. And
Yeah, I'll check the Sunday before would be August 24th.
yeah. So yeah, Cape and Cowl Con 24th. It's gonna be at a brewery. Fraction Brewery, I think it's called. It's one of the best cons in the country because you get to hang out at a brewery, drink beer, buy comics, meet amazing creators, and maybe get a special variant only available at that show.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Until supplies last. We're gonna do a very
wish-
small print run, so it'll probably sell out at the show. But yeah,
Awesome. Well, I hope that
That's
works out.
exciting.
That sounds great. Yeah. So if
Yeah.
you're in the Bay Area, August 24th, Cape and Cow Con.
yeah. And
Fantastic.
I'll be at San Diego. I don't know if I'm doing anything with Mad Cave yet. I haven't seen a schedule, so but I'll be at San Diego Comic-Con. If this comes out before then, I don't know when you're going to post this.
Yeah, good question. When am I going to do that?
I might be talking about things that happened in the past. Well,
It
San
depends.
Diego is in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, so this might not be out yet. 24th is San Diego Comic-Con of this month. So 2 weeks from today, when we're recording this on the 10th.
Okay, this is coming. This will probably when this comes out, San Diego will have just happened. So hopefully you had a great
thanks
time.
everybody. I want to thank everybody who came by to say hi to me at San Diego. We had a great time doing. Please edit in right here whatever I did. I'll move my mouth a little bit. Okay, and had a great time at the
That sounds
signing. Had a great
wonderful.
time at the bar. Had a great time. Whatever we did, I loved seeing whoever was there to be seen. Yeah. And then I'll be at Cape and Cowl, and then I'll be at Boise Comics Arts Fest, which looks like an amazing show. They're having some cool guests there, and super excited about that show. That's the weekend after Red Vector comes out.
Okay.
So
All
I've
right.
got a very, very busy Red Vector week.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, that's good.
Cape and Cowl on Sunday, a signing at Empire's Comics Vault in Sacramento all day on Wednesday when it comes out, and then Thursday I leave for Boise and Boise Comics Art Fest Saturday and Sunday. We're gonna do some stuff at the schools on Friday, so I'm super excited about that. But yeah, come get all your Red Vector goodness.
Awesome. Well, that sounds fantastic. So
Yeah.
I'll put links to everything so folks can get the issue and so they can follow you on social media. And I'll put links to the Cape and Cowl Con or the Boise Arts Fest. I'll search them out and I'll make sure that there's links. So listeners, you can get all that stuff. Of course, shout out to my brother Bobby, the Cryptid Creator Corner #1 most dedicated.
What's up, Bobby?
Fan.
Thanks for the Dead Blood love. We're working on #2. I swear there's like 3 pages left to illustrate. We're getting real close.
Oh, fantastic.
We're starting to talk about issue 3 right now. We're going to try to get we have a wrestling game that Christopher Alvarez created based in the Dead Blood universe. And so we're going to try to bring some wrestling into issue 3. It's going to be stupid and crazy and fun and just like the best time. So issue 2, hopefully, I don't know if we're going to do a Kickstarter. We might just do a pre-order and just sell it ourselves. So
okay,
we'll see how it goes. I want to talk Christopher and doing a Kickstarter, but since he's the organized one and has to do everything, and I'm this flaky ass writer that does nothing, it has to be up to him to run the Kickstarter because I'm no help.
Whatever
terrible.
it is, Bobby will be there. He'll be excited for it. So, and I mean, I liked it too, but he was really very thrilled with Dead Blood. He's been asking me because if you talk to him, find out when Dead Blood.
And I'm telling you, man, Christopher's going crazy on some of these pages. He's got some crazy layouts. Like it starts in a sewer and he's got this giant sewer scene where it's like a big like maze of pipes and stuff. So it's super cool. Yeah, I'm excited about it. When we get it done, not if, when it gets done.
When it gets done, you guys can come back. That'll be number 5.
That'll be number 5.
Number 5.
Well, yeah. I really hope people buy my books because I want to make more books, and I only got like one more thing under contract right now. So I got one more time that I can maybe come back to talk to you. And then Dead Blood, and then I'm running out of jobs. So we gotta Tim and I are getting some pitches together. So we're gonna hopefully pitch some stuff out. But like things are tough in comics right now. So
yeah, I know.
Remember when you go to the comic shop, you're voting with your dollars on who gets more books made. So vote wisely.
Yeah, that's what I do. I do my best to try and support indie comics, here. And I mean, I support a lot of comics, but that's what you have to do. If you like a series, you got to buy it because that's the way the publishers, know that somebody's going to be interested. It is still a business, but if
Yeah,
you're writing them, David, you and Tim are writing them. I'll keep reading them.
Thank you, sir.
So,
yeah, appreciate it.
All right, listeners, thank you so much for listening. Again, Red Vector, August 4th is final order cutoff. The issue's coming out August 27th. If you're any type of sci-fi fan, I really think you're going to love it, but especially check it out. Issue 1. If I know you're going to like it, then you can add the rest of them to your pull list. And it's issue 1 is really great. So especially for somebody who's a fan of all those things that I've mentioned, it's really very exciting. So David, thank you so much again.
Thanks
for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Listeners, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.